Whether you're planning a week-long luxurious honeymoon to the Champagne region or just a quick day trip from Paris, this episode is for you. Hi friends, my name is Sarah and I'm a certified sommelier and host of the Wine CEO podcast show. And this is my last episode on Champagne for my Champagne mini-series. I had the great opportunity to visit Champagne this last summer. And while I was there, I interviewed countless winemakers and wine industry professionals and traveled throughout the region to be able to bring you the top tips and things you need to know about this incredible region of Champagne. So today what I'm going to do is go ahead and dive into my top tips for visiting the region. But if you haven't listened to the previous episodes in this mini-series, definitely check out my Champagne 101 episode, as well as the many interviews that I had a chance to do, especially if you're traveling to the region. It's a great base set of knowledge before you visit this infamous sparkling wine region. All right, so my first tip for you all is going to be around traveling to the Champagne region. And my biggest recommendation is going to be to rent a car. Now, I share this in a lot of my travel videos because when you think about a wine growing region, you have a lot of vineyards that are spread out over many acres. Just like any region that's known for farming and agriculture, often the farms are going to be outside of the main city areas that are connected by transportation. So while there is a really great train that will take you from Paris to Reims, which is one of the main cities in Champagne, in only 45 minutes, once you get to Reims, you'll be a little more limited on where you can go and the places you can visit if you don't have a car. It's only a 2-hour drive from Paris to Champagne, and so I think that having a car gives you that added flexibility to be able to check out the region, visit some local smaller grower producers, and maybe even bounce between Epernay and Reims, two of the more famous cities that are in the Champagne region. There are 300 villages around Champagne, and so there's a lot of incredible places to explore. So if you don't want to be limited in your one-day visit, I think renting a car is the best way to go. Now that said, if you're not comfortable renting a car, or if you feel like you really need to just dip your toes into the Champagne region, you can definitely take the train from Paris to Reims. It's only 45 minutes, and once you get to Reims, you can make reservations at a few of the local Champagne houses where you can walk around Reims very easily without needing a car. You can visit multiple Champagne houses, get a wonderful bite to eat at an amazing restaurant in downtown Reims, and then catch the train back to Paris very easily. Your other option would be to take a guided tour. My very first time visiting Champagne, I took a guided tour that picked me up at my hotel in Paris, drove me to Champagne. I got to visit one large house, one small grower producer, have a wonderful tour of downtown Reims, and then they drove me back to my hotel in Paris at the end of the evening. It was a small group tour. I'll link it below in the show notes. Absolutely amazing. So you have a lot of options for visiting Champagne the first time. Definitely if you're going for more than a day though, if you're going to be staying in the region for maybe a long weekend or even a whole week, highly recommend renting a car. I think it's the only way to get around and be able to see the region. Taxis and Ubers aren't quite as available as a lot of other major regions, and so you will need a car if you want to be able to get around and see the region more freely. All right, the next thing I'm going to recommend is that while you're in Champagne, to try a variety of Champagne houses. So a lot of folks know the big name producers from Champagne, the large maisons or houses, but they're not as familiar with cooperatives and small grower producers. Now, if you're not familiar with these terms, head back to my Champagne 101 episode because I explain these in detail and it'll give you that base level knowledge to help you choose what's best for you. But note that the small growers, producers, and the cooperatives tend to be smaller houses of Champagne producers that are not as easy to find or as easily accessible outside of the Champagne region. These are often going to be multi-generation, small family-owned wineries, and so you'll have the opportunity to really experience local flavor, local styles of terroir that you don't always get from a large Champagne house that's making millions and millions of bottles to ship around the world. So I think it's a great idea to be able to visit a large Champagne house while you're visiting Champagne, as well as checking out a smaller cooperative and grower producer. So have a little bit of diversity in the Champagne producers you book at so that you can have a variety of style and compare and contrast while you're in the Champagne region. And I just mentioned a minor detail that's very, very important when you're traveling to the Champagne region, and that is booking a reservation in advance. A lot of the small growers, producers, as well as cooperatives don't offer public tastings on their website, but if you email them directly, they are always very happy to open their doors and give you a private tour of their cellar or of their winemaking facility and then offer a tasting of their wines. For the larger houses or maisons, it's a lot easier to go on their website and book a tasting. If you don't book in advance, it's very possible that these locations will book book up and then you may not be able to visit them. So highly recommend always booking a reservation in advance, whether that is with a small grower producer or at a large maison. Now there are two main cities that everyone loves to visit when they visit the Champagne region, and that's Reims and Epernay. Now Epernay has the infamous Avenue de Champagne, and this is a beautiful street that has so many incredible champagne houses. So some of the large maisons that you're very familiar with are all located along this road, and you will find beautiful tasting rooms with incredible food, incredible views, and wonderful atmosphere to try some of the top champagnes in the world. In addition to this, Epernay is known for having a lot of wonderful restaurants and incredible history. It's a great city to drive around. They have a wonderful farmers market on the weekends, and you can enjoy some amazing opportunities to try champagne in historic homes that have been housing many very famous champagne houses for generations. Now, Reims is my personal favorite. I love Reims because it's a little bit bigger than Epernay, and while it is definitely still known for some incredible champagne houses, there's a lot more happening in this city as well. There's great shopping, great dining. It's a university town, and so it's lively at night, and there's a lot of fun places to dine. So when I stay in the Champagne region, I love to stay in Reims because there's so much to see and do when all of the wineries are closed in the evening. Some of the best food I found was located in Reims, and let me tell you, this city is walkable, safe, beautiful for shopping, and just an absolutely incredible city to check out. And Reims is also known for the incredible cathedral Notre Dame de Reims. And this is actually larger than Notre Dame in Paris, believe it or not. And this cathedral is where the kings were crowned for France for many centuries. So the history in this chapel is phenomenal. And as you walk through the church, you'll see some beautiful decor from incredible stained glass windows that actually show the process of winemaking, which shows you the importance of winemaking in this region, as well as in the far back of the church. There's a beautiful set of stained glass windows by Marc Chagall. The church had some amazing history through both world wars, and so getting to experience that firsthand and see this beautiful church that has truly been at the heart of the Champagne region for centuries is really, really exciting. So you cannot miss visiting Notre Dame de Reims. Even if you are just in Champagne for the day, I think it has to be at the top of your bucket list. It's beautiful. They even do a nighttime light show that is certain nights of the year. And so if you happen to be traveling to the Champagne region, see if that light show is going to be available while you're in town. If it's warmer months, they tend to play a couple times throughout the week, and it is a very fun show and something that is not to be missed. Now, the history does not stop with this incredible cathedral that's in downtown Reims. There's also the largest Roman arch in the world located in Reims. I was shocked. I had no idea that it was located here before I traveled to this region. I had always assumed it would have been in Italy, but nope. In fact, the Roman Empire played a really vital role in the early development of the Champagne region. So the Champagne terroir is known for having incredible chalk and limestone that's very deep within the soil. And so the Romans actually created these large chalk quarries to be able to mine the limestone chalk out of the ground and use it for building streets, for building buildings, and then this large Roman arch. Now, these large quarries called Crayeres were later used by winemakers to store their wines. They became wine cellars deep under the city of Reims and well out into the countryside. And the winemakers to this day use these tunnels that go for miles and miles and miles to store millions of bottles of champagne. Now, during World War I and World War II, these same Crayeres were actually used as places to hide. And so many Champenois, or people from the Champagne region, moved their families into these caverns, these Crayeres, to be able to survive the army attacks and the bombings that during World War I completely destroyed the city of Reims. It was almost leveled completely, but the people hiding underground in these chalk quarries were safe. They hid underground for over a year. There were hospitals and schools and homes that were completely built in these chalk quarries, and it's incredible today to be able to visit many of these champagne houses. Go in a tour where you can visit these underground underground cellars and have the ability to see some of the graffiti from children who were carving Nazi German soldiers into the walls, or to see their schoolwork that they were writing on the walls of the chalk. It's really amazing to think about the incredible importance that these Crayeres played during World War I and World War II, and then continue to play in the lives of the Champenois today. So really incredible history in the region, and I definitely think that if you're visiting the region, you cannot miss taking a tour where you get to go down into these chalk limestone quarries, see some of the wines that are being stored under here, and experience a bit of the history of this incredible region. All right, now my next point is going to be around a good time to travel to the Champagne region. I made a point earlier about how northerly the region is, and so you do want to be mindful of the weather, but you also have to be mindful of the harvest season. The entire region, as you can imagine, revolves around the production of champagne. And with wine, it's an agricultural product where there is a consistent harvest time where the entire region is basically going to shut down and be helping with harvest. So while it could be an interesting thing to see or try and be a part of, it is going to limit your ability to experience the region in its fullest. And let me tell you what I mean by that. While the champagne producers are preparing for the harvest as well as participating in the harvest, they're not going to be as free with their time to meet with visitors, to do tastings with visitors, and many of the workers in the Champagne region that would typically be working in other restaurants or shops may be called in to help with harvest. The Champagne region is one of very few regions in the world that still requires all of the grapes to be harvested by hand. No machines can be used at all, and so for this reason, there will be a huge group effort from many of the residents of the Champagne region to leave a lot of their businesses dormant for a few weeks while they help with the harvest and production of the champagne. So this means that while you may show up during harvest and be able to see individuals in the vineyard, and you could be excited about the picking of the grapes, outside of that, a lot of the region businesses will be shut down, and it may not be as easy for you to visit wineries and taste wine. So my personal recommendation is going to be to avoid the harvest season. Many winemakers will go on vacation in July as they're preparing for the harvest, and then harvest can happen really any time between August and September. So I would recommend visiting any time from late September, early October through June. These are going to be the best times where you'll be able to speak with winemakers, get to taste wines, and enjoy the region as it is alive and bustling and not necessarily completely shut down and focused on producing the wine. One of the things that I absolutely fell in love with while I was visiting Champagne this last season was the Côte de Champenois. And these are still wines that are made in the Champagne region. And yes, you heard me correctly, still wines. While the region is known for all of its incredible sparkling wines that are obviously infamous around the world, they make some amazing still wines in the region, but they're difficult to find outside of Champagne. Because the region is known for its sparkling wine, the Côte de Champenois will sometimes make its way to Paris or small regions around France, but for the most part, it's going to stay very close to Champagne. This means that it's going to be hard for you to try it anywhere else in the world, so when you're visiting the region, you cannot miss it. In addition to the Côte de Champenois, there's also amazing sweet wines. There are even some distilled spirits, so there's a lot to explore outside of the sparkling wine. So make sure that while you're there, you ask about trying some Côte de Champenois in addition to getting to try all of the amazing sparkling wines that are made in this region. And my last tip is going to be that there are a lot of incredible wines that are being made in the Champagne region that you can't find at home. They aren't exported, or it's going to be very difficult for you to get it through a distributor. And so you're going to want to bring some extra room in your suitcase to be able to bring some wines home. Whether that's the still Côte de Champenois or some small grower producer champagne that's not exported from the region, you're going to want to be able to bring some of these favorites home. So whether that's an extra suitcase or a little extra space in your bag, make sure you have some room to be able to bring some champagne wines home. Check on the rules for your country on how many bottles you can carry with you. There are some restrictions in some regions of the world on the amount of champagne or alcohol that you can bring back into your home country. Now, if you're a foodie like me, there's some incredible restaurants and places to dine in the Champagne region. I've included a quick short list here that you can screenshot. They're also in the show notes for today's episode so that you can make sure you do some reservations in advance so that you can visit some of these top dining locations in Champagne. I hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned something new. This is the end of my Champagne mini-series, and while I'm so sad that it's come to a close, I hope you've enjoyed it and had a wonderful time traveling through this region and enjoying my trip to Champagne from this last summer. If you learned something new from today's episode, don't forget to like and share this episode with a friend. Drop a comment below. Let me know what you loved most about this Champagne mini-series, and if you have any questions about Champagne or any other wine, I would love to be able to answer them. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, do so now, because coming up next, I have my mini-series on Bordeaux. Bordeaux is my last region on France that I'm going to be featuring this year. I had a phenomenal time traveling through France, and I have featured Rhone, Burgundy, the Loire, Champagne, and now Bordeaux. So I'm really excited to be bringing this last region to you all. So if you haven't subscribed to my show yet, be sure to do so now so you don't miss those upcoming episodes. Until next week, friends, I hope you drink something new and delicious, and I will catch you all in the next episode of the Wine CEO Podcast.